Hey everyone, welcome back. So we have an exercise here that's going to push our digital painting skills a bit further, and we're only going to be using our hard and soft brushes here just to get a better refinement of these tools, right? So recall I've made mention in the past about trying to not rely too much on your different brush heads and stamp brushes and things like this. So with this exercise, we're going to see what we can do with just those two brushes, the hard and the soft, okay? And let's go ahead and get our document set up here. We can use 11 by 8.5 inches is fine. 72 DPI is good. And let's go ahead and create this here. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're basically going to be taking a ball and we're going to try to render that three-dimensionally, right? So we're going to have a light, some middle tones, some shadows, and we're going to just be doing that with our two brushes, right? We're actually going to be using the brush tool and the eraser tool together, right? And I'll show you how we're going to be doing that. But I'll show you the quick and dirty way to do this, right? Using an effect. So let's go ahead and create a new layer. And with our elliptical marquee tool, go ahead and hold Shift to constrain, and let's just make a circle like that, okay? And let's fill that here. I'm just gonna use a violet color. The paint bucket tool, we'll fill that in. Okay, there we go. So we have a circle. And if you've used bevel and emboss before, you know that this is a really helpful tool to make a object look three-dimensional. But let's go ahead and go to bevel and emboss. And I already got it kind of set up the way that I wanted it, but make sure you get to inner bevel, right? If you're on emboss, it's going to show a drop shadow and not quite, it's going to imprint, not quite do what you want. So inner bevel is what we want. Go ahead and put this on smooth. And then these three, depth, size, and soften, go ahead and adjust these as you need to, right? Notice the further I go to the right, the more cone-like that's going to look. But let's just try to give ourselves kind of a nice smooth gradient from, the light to the dark, right? See how that size is affecting, that's imprinting into our ball. We don't want that. But yeah, let's just pick a nice, soften as you need. And then right here, the angle, right, I can click on this little circle and I can move this around. That's going to change that light source. So I'm not going to do anything too much with that. I'd recommend keeping yours right in that top left or top right. And then gloss contour, here's an opportunity for some extra credit, right? If you wanted to challenge yourselves a bit more and make that ball look like it's for example, a metallic ball, right? You could pick one of these other patterns, right? You can see that these kind of give the impression of a different surface, right? A highly polished surface, right? But for the demonstration, I'm just going to use this standard right here, this diagonal from top left to bottom right. But again, those of you that want to push this a little bit, I challenge you to make that ball look like it's a metallic object. Okay? So once you have your ball the way that you'd like, go ahead and hit OK. And there we go. We have our ball. Let's create a new layer. And we're going to create another circle here. Hold Shift, and it doesn't have to be exact, but there we go. But the catch is you have to do this in another color, right? So I'm going to now come to this blue color, and I'm going to fill that. And there we go. So we're going to use the circle on the left as reference, right? So looking at where the gradients are, where the darks and mids and lights go. But we're going to challenge ourselves to see if we can do this with just our hard and soft brushes and erasers. Okay, so we're going to work in multiple layers here. And I'll kind of walk you through this. I'll go a little bit quickly, but we'll see how I do here. So I'm going to create a new layer. Well, first I'm going to come back to that ball and I'm going to make a selection. There we go. And then come to my layer. This way I'm at least painting within my boundaries and I know I won't go outside that ball. Okay, so I'm going to come to my eyedropper tool. And I have my base hue right here, but I'm gonna start with my shadows and kind of work my way to the light. And I'm just gonna pick kind of a darker shadow here, or darker value. And using my brush tool B, I'm gonna just kind of paint in. I'm actually gonna paint in this whole thing, right? Just because as I start erasing with that soft eraser, I may start coming up into areas that I don't want to see any hard overlap edges. You'll see what I mean as I start doing this, but I'm just painting in that whole thing here, and then I'm going to go to a new layer, and I'm going to pick a value, right, a little bit lighter, and I'm going to come in and let's say I'll paint all of this here. Okay. And this area I'll leave alone. That's kind of the darkest area. And I'm just using my trackpad here, so my lines aren't as smooth as I'd like them to be, but that's okay. So then here I'm going to use my eraser tool, and notice, right, with the eraser tool, make sure I'm going to use a soft, make sure that hardness is all the way down. And as I start clicking, right, because it's a soft edge, it'll start affecting things that are outside of my circle, right, the selection that I have. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to try to soften this up a bit, right, get rid of that line. Right, there we go. That's kind of a nice gradient there. And then I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to come a little bit lighter now. Back to my brush tool. Right. And I'll just paint in kind of this half here. There we go. Okay, come back to my eraser tool. And again, try to soften up that. Line. And a lot of you are probably wondering, why would you ever do it this way when the bevel emboss tool is so much faster? Well, that is true, but right, we're not building our skills if we're always just relying on those adjustments and effects, right? So this is just going to give us a better control over our brush and eraser tools, okay? So I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to go a little bit lighter again, right? And I'm going to kind of just, brush tool. I'm going to just paint in a little bit more of this. And again, I mean, I'm kind of working in different steps here, right? Just slowly making these changes. Come to my eraser tool. Right? Softening up this edge. Okay, now I'm going to do another layer. And I'm going to go a lot brighter now here. I want to get some of this, right, some of this highlighting here on the top. Okay, come back to my brush tool. Okay, back to my eraser. And I'll try to soften this edge again. So that looks okay. Pretty good. I mean, I think not bad for doing it manually. I could probably spend a little bit more time on this, but there we go. So they're close, and yeah, not bad. So I'd like you to do the same here, and I'd like to see all of your layers here. So I mean, let me go ahead and I'll group all of these. Command G, and I'll group this into ball. So yeah, submit this to me as a Photoshop file. I'd like to see your bevel and emboss sphere, and then your own with the different layers here. And we're going to use this for the next part of our exercise. So let's see how you do just using your hard and soft brushes and erasers.